Hey everyone, welcome back to Financial Futures. Okay, so let's get into this real quick because today, we're diving into something that's been stirring a lot of questions: SSA's new DI plan. What does that really mean for Social Security beneficiaries, and does it impact your benefits? Let's break it down. When most people hear diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially when it's linked to something as important as Social Security, the immediate fear is, wait, are they going to take something from me and give it to someone else? Does this mean fewer benefits for me because of my race or someone else's background? And let me tell you, I hear these concerns a lot. But the truth is, no one's losing their benefits due to diversity initiatives. The SSA isn't out here slashing checks for one group and boosting another. Instead, this DI plan is more about creating a workforce that reflects the diversity of the people they serve. So, it's less about taking away from you and more about ensuring they have a team that represents the diverse needs of the population. Now, what's really interesting is how the SSA is using DI. Their focus is on making sure the workforce is inclusive, hiring more people of color, LGBTQ+ individuals, and folks from diverse backgrounds. But that leaves one important question. What about the DI initiatives for the people who rely on these benefits, especially the disabled? We all know that disabled people form one of the most underrepresented groups when it comes to financial inclusion. They get the bare minimum from Social Security, and many are struggling just to make ends meet. So, what is the SSA doing to include disabled individuals in their DI efforts? Have you ever been contacted by a DI officer asking, "What do you need to live a better life?" No? Me neither. This, to me, is where the real conversation about DI should start. Disabled individuals need equity the most because while the rest of us are navigating the challenges of capitalism, disabled individuals are navigating it with some of the biggest financial limitations. So let me ask you this. What could Social Security do to really level the playing field for disabled people? For starters, we need more support programs, not just the Ticket to Work program that barely scratches the surface. Look at how the VA offers multiple initiatives to help their disabled veterans, from job training to educational benefits. The SSA needs to step up, creating pathways for the disabled to thrive, not just survive. And it all starts with asking the people who rely on these benefits, what do you need? People are struggling to afford basic necessities, and the frustration is mounting. Many feel like they're paying into a broken system that isn't working for them, and they're at a breaking point. Let's start with the heart of the issue. Inflation is sky high. Rent, groceries, healthcare, everything is more expensive than ever before. But wages? They're not keeping up. For many, their Social Security checks or disability benefits barely scratch the surface. We're talking about people who have worked their entire lives, paid into Social Security, and now are left struggling just to survive in retirement. When people can't afford their rent or basic healthcare, they have very little to lose. And that's what makes this situation so dangerous. When people, especially older individuals, feel they've got nothing left, they begin to lose hope. And hopelessness can lead to drastic, sometimes destructive, decisions. The homeless crisis in America is at an all-time high. But there's a misconception that people on the streets are there by choice or because of addiction. Sure, that happens. But let me tell you, a lot of these individuals never thought they'd end up homeless. They lost their jobs, couldn't pay rent, and one thing led to another. Many had stable lives until everything crumbled beneath them. What most people don't realize is that a huge chunk of the homeless population was simply one medical bill or one missed paycheck away from the streets. And once you're homeless, you're even more vulnerable to falling into substance abuse as a way to cope with pain, physical or emotional. Let's talk about addiction for a moment. Many people associate homelessness with drugs, But a lot of those individuals weren't addicts until they lost everything. Imagine losing your home, your stability, and even your health. Suddenly, you can't afford your prescription medication anymore. What do? Some turn to street drugs for relief. What starts as a coping mechanism spirals into full-blown addiction. The harsh truth is that our social safety net isn't catching everyone it's supposed to. And once someone falls through those cracks, it becomes incredibly difficult to get back on their feet. Drug dealers prey on the vulnerable, getting people hooked, keeping them trapped in a cycle of dependency. It's heartbreaking and it's happening all around us. But there's another layer to this crisis that no one talks about: what happens to the children. I see it all the time. A woman gets into a relationship with someone who introduces her to drugs. She gets pregnant. She tries to take care of her child, but the addiction gets worse. Eventually, the state steps in, and the child goes to live with their grandparents. And that mother? She's trapped in a vicious cycle with the same dealer, year after year. These are generational problems that destroy families. It's a cycle of poverty, addiction, and trauma that never gets properly addressed. No one is talking about the kids born into these situations. They grow up in chaos, with the odds stacked against them from day one. Here's something we need to talk about: why do drug dealers have so much power over people, especially vulnerable women? It's not just about drugs. It's about money, or at least the illusion of money. These guys seem like they're doing well because they have flashy cars, nice clothes, and a certain lifestyle. But the truth is, most of them are just as poor as their customers. They're living on the edge too. They're not the top-tier cartel leaders, they're just foot soldiers in a much larger, more dangerous game. When these guys get arrested, their lives are ruined. Years in prison for petty dealing, all while the real profiteers remain untouched. It's a lose-lose situation for everyone involved. So why aren't we doing more about this? Why aren't we fixing the systems that allow these tragedies to keep happening? The truth is, we don't have a good support structure for people who fall into addiction, homelessness, or poverty. And that's why so many people are livid. They're tired of paying into a system that promises to help, but then fails them when they need it most. The SSA, Social Security Administration, isn't reaching out to the disabled, the homeless, or the most vulnerable to see what would actually help them. Instead, people are left to fend for themselves in a world that feels increasingly stacked against them. As we push for diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI), we can't forget about the disability community. They make up 25% of the population, yet they're so often overlooked in these conversations. If we truly want to build a compassionate, inclusive society, we need to include everyone, especially those who are already struggling the most. Making disability a cornerstone of the DEI movement is critical. These conversations can't just be about race, gender, or sexual orientation, they have to include the disabled community too. We need to build a world where they can thrive, not just survive. So, where do we go from here? It starts with awareness. We need to talk about these issues openly and honestly. We need to hold our government accountable for failing the most vulnerable among us. And we need to push for policies that actually make a difference, like better mental health services, affordable housing, and real support for families dealing with addiction. We can't solve everything overnight, but together, we can create a future where people aren't left to fall through the cracks. Where paying into the system means you get the help you need when you need it. It's time for real change. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this video helpful, or if you're passionate about making change, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and family. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and take control of your financial future.